Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. This is a new channel for me. This is my second channel. I do have another channel because I am actually in the middle or the midst of traveling right now. I'm a long-term traveler. I started this channel because I have an opinion. Like everybody has an opinion, and if you saw my other video, this channel is just dedicated to talking about things that's going on right now in the world, whether it has to do with race, gender, sexuality, equality, but coming from a sort of a different perspective. I'm not trying to be extreme anti, and I'm definitely not extreme social justice warrior either. I'm trying to come from a moderate perspective, even though sometimes it might come off as if I'm just more of an anti. But yeah, this is sort of an opinion channel. I am educated. I do research. I do watch a lot of documentaries and programs. I read a lot. So I'm not coming from just, I'm not just purely speaking out of my ass, but this is an opinion channel. So feel free to challenge me, debate me, have a conversation with me. But anyway, actually to the topic of today. The topic of today is going to be the transgender ban that our President Trump tweeted out into the world and caused a clusterfuck. When I first heard about the tweet, I don't agree with the way he handled it. When I first initially heard about it and heard about the tweet, my very liberal side of me wanted to be immediately just angry, and I didn't care what anybody else had to say. Like, this is wrong, I'm angry, he's a fucking transphobic or whatever. I wanted to be super SJW about it and just be like, fuck that, you know what I mean? Because like, even though like my whole political identity life, like since I was probably a teenager, I started paying attention to politics before I got out of high school, that I always like claimed to be independent or moderate because I don't like labels, and I don't understand why people are so obsessed with labels today. But when I was growing up, labels were not cool, and so I felt like independent was the least labely one that you can label yourself as. So I always labeled myself as an independent, and I did have moderate views, but my personality was very much liberal. I was an old school liberal where you felt like liberalism was just do what the fuck you want, be you, like, if you're not hurting anybody, live your life how you want to live it. That's not really how liberalism is now. Liberal is just as bad as conservatism, where you're trying to impose your views on other people and you're not allowing people to just be free and live the life how they want to live it. But anyway, I had a very sort of liberal personality. I still do have a very liberal sort of personality. So when I heard about Trump's ban, I was like, I immediately wanted to like be upset, be angry, be outraged, and kind of do what I used to do and what a lot of liberals and conservatives do, whereas not even listen to the other side because you just said something that like hurts my feelings and hurts my ideology or whatever. But I'm trying something new because I guess I'm getting older and wiser, and I don't know, but I am trying to actually maybe listen to the other side and see what they actually have to say, because like, if you've noticed, like a lot of people are so quick to tweet things without getting like the full story, and then it just skews people's perspective. Like there was the J.K. Rowling, the woman who wrote those books, the author. She tweeted that video to say that Trump like skipped over that handicapped kid, and it got tweeted so many times. And then when she finally realized, like, no, actually, that was the first person he shook, and he actually talked to that kid for a while, and someone actually edited that video to look like he skipped over that kid. By the time she came out and then said that she was wrong, that particular tweet didn't get any tweets, really. Like, compared to the amount of retweets that the first one got, the second one barely got any tweets. So it's just like, I don't want to be that person that hears a story right away and makes up my mind and run with it. I want to start to actually hear it, listen to it, dissect it, and then come up with my opinion. And so I was told, and I was to understand that the ban didn't include, and it is really confusing. A lot of people who want to have a particular objective conversation about this, it's hard for people to do that because people are confused about like what's the actual ban consist of, because it really was just a tweet. But my understanding was, and I could be wrong, so correct me if I am, but my understanding was, because it is hard to kind of find information about it. But anyway, my understanding was that it wasn't banning all transgenders. It wasn't saying transgenders who are in active military must leave the military or must leave their stations. It wasn't doing that. It was saying that they're banning people who are in transition. So if that is the case, if that's the actual ban, I do think that deserves a conversation. Now, I am not transgender. I do not suffer from gender dysphoria, but I do actually follow and listen to a lot of transgenders who are on YouTube, on social media, because I am a part of the LGBTQ community, and I also believe in trans rights, so I try to understand a perspective, so I'm educated, because like you can read all you want and facts are facts, but also understanding perspective from people who actually experienced it. What I understand, and my understanding with gender dysphoria, even though this is a generalized statement, this is not everybody, of course individuals are different, but generally transphobia is a bitch. Like, it's a terrible, horrible thing to go through, that a lot of people who go through it wouldn't be wishing on their worst enemies, that it makes life very difficult for them. And so just going by that alone, the gender dysphoria, like, I would understand why somebody wouldn't want them to be in the military. Like, there's lots of reasons why people don't get into the military. It's not that easy to get into the military. Like, I even heard if you have like extreme acne, sometimes you won't get into military just because of that, because of the psychological issues that it might bring on, like depression or anxiety or low self-esteem or confidence. Like, you gotta, I'm assuming you gotta be pretty confident to be a soldier. Obesity, diabetes, like any type of mental issues or disorders, depression, severe anxiety. Like, there's a lot of reasons why you can join the military. And I think even having like facial tattoos, you can join the military. So it's not like everybody can join the military except you transgenders, you know what I mean? And so if I know it's been a debate and argument whether gender dysphoria should be still classed as a mental disorder. I understand why people who are transgender wouldn't want to be classed as someone who has a mental disorder because of the negative connotations that it has with it. At the same time, I do think that we as a society need to pay attention to more to mental issues and mental problems. And maybe we wouldn't have so many more like mass shootings if we would like put more funding into mental health. Even though I'm not a fan of like finding a word for everything, like, oh, you're sad sometimes, so this is the type of depression you have. Like, sometimes being sad is just being sad. But anyway, I do believe that we should put more funding and pay more attention to mental health. And so like if you want more studies and research to go into gender dysphoria, then classing it as a mental disorder would help that. But anyway, I'm not trying to argue against that. I'm not transgender, so I'm not trying to fight for or against that. But let's just say gender dysphoria is a mental disorder. And for the most part of my understanding, if you're suffering from a mental disorder, you cannot join the military. So in a way, you would think like, well, wouldn't the vetting that they have already just already eliminate people who are severely going through gender dysphoria? But at the same time, I guess, you know, people are trying to turn the military into a political game and say like, well, if you don't bring them in, then you're this, you're a bigot or you're transphobic. So maybe they're like lowering their standards to allow those people in to look like they're, you know, inclusive to all or something like that. But anyway, I would understand if I was a soldier. And I know there's a lots of positions in the military that you can take. It's not just on the front lines. It's not just combat. But let's just focus on that right now. Like, if I was a soldier and I'm in combat and my life is depending on my team, and if I knew that someone on my team was severely going through gender dysphoria or just going through gender dysphoria, like, I would feel uncomfortable and I would feel like my life is in danger. Also, my understanding is that when you are going through transition, the hormones and all the medication that you take to transition is also can be very difficult and hard to go through. Like, your body is transition. Your body is in transition. Like, that's not a simple little thing to do. And I heard that a lot of times when they go through this, people who are transitioning, generalizing, not everybody, but people who are transitioning, like, they can have severe mood swings, they go up and down, they can even like go through a lot of depression. Their gender dysphoria can go into high gear before it gets better. So again, if someone is taking these medications and they're in the beginning of their transition and they're going through all these mental and emotional problems, or not even problems, let's just say dealing with mental and emotional things, I still would understand why they wouldn't be allowed into the military, because again, talking just about combat, your life, you have like, and the other thing that I understand about the military, it's not about the individual. This is not, you know, a summer camp. This is not a kumbaya. This is not the place where you go and explore your feelings and how you feel and what, all those things. It's about the team and it's about the unit. So it's kind of like you are only strong as your weakest person on your team. So if you have somebody on that unit that's suffering with someone, you're kind of putting everyone in that team in danger. So I would understand if I was fighting in combat, I wouldn't want somebody who was going through that. And I'm sure it is not just people who are transitioning, who are dealing with mental and emotional problems, PTSD and stuff like that. I'm sure there's a lot of soldiers who also deal with those things. And I understand we can't generalize things, but we're just focusing on transgenders right now. And so if that's the case, if the case is just people who are transitioning, whether it's the beginning or the middle of their transition, I do think that like we should have a conversation about that. I don't think it should just be completely and utterly dismissed, because of my understanding of gender dysphoria and the process of actually transitioning. That it could be difficult, and I don't know why, like, if I was a transgender and I was going through that, why would I also pile on being in the military on top of that? I think that would be just a lot and too much to handle all at the same time. Now, people who are already transitioned and in the military, I would argue against banning them, if that is actually the ban. I am very much against that, because I'm sure there's a lot of transgenders who are in the military that are bad fucking asses. And there is something to say, like, why would you take this, if somebody has a heart and a passion to protect me and to protect the citizens of this country in America, why would you take that away from them? Like, nobody in Trump's family has ever been in the military, not his immediate family, of my understanding anyway. I'm not going to join the military, so why am I going to stop somebody who wants to do that? Like, it's supposed to be something of pride and something that you're supposed to applaud, of someone like putting their lives at risk to protect others. At the same time, playing the devil's advocate, if joining the military is your passion, you're like, I want to be a soldier, this is what I want to do, I want to protect my country, would you then not sacrifice the transition period to do that? Would you, whether to say, like, depending on what the ban consists of, whether to say, like, I want to join the military, so I'm going to wait till I'm finished transitioning to then do so, or I really want to be in the military, this is my passion, so I'm going to hold off transitioning until I get out of the military, which I don't know if that would be possible, because again, gender dysphoria and stuff like that, but still, like, just plain devil's advocate. But I am very, very much, again, just banning all transgenders, especially people who are already in active military, because then what happens to their pension, what happens to their benefits, what happens to all those things, like, how would they actually get discharged? Would it be honorable? Would it be dishonorable? Like, I'm very much against that. But if it is just people who are in the beginning or the middle or just transitioning, then I think that is kind of worth a conversation and not just shutting it down. I know that if you Google it right now, like, it seems like the mass amount of people are very much against this, even people who are a part of the military. But people who are, like, right now active military can't say very much, because it's against the rules. They cannot talk about politics. They cannot talk about their beliefs. So even if they were strongly for it or against it, they can voice their opinions. So the people that are actually getting the most affected by this, because transgenders do make up a very small percentage of the military, so the majority of the people who are getting affected by this can't actually voice whether they're for or against it. So we can't really get a good picture of what's actually going on inside the soldiers' heads, or inside that community. The idea that the medical cost that goes into helping the transgenders who have completed their transitioning already in the military, the idea that it's like, oh, we're paying so many taxes compared to the amount of money that the military already expends is very minute. It's not that much, so that I don't really agree with. But so I don't agree with banning transgenders who are already in the military, who've completed their transition, and I am also against banning people who already completed their transition who now wants to enlist in the military. But the idea of banning people who are in their transition still, like in the beginning, and I know like transgenders have to take medication for the rest of their life, but I don't think that's still transitioning. I think you get your surgery once you take enough hormones where you replace most of your testosterone with estrogen, or replace the testosterone you needed with, or you replace the estrogen you needed with testosterone, then you kind of completed your transition. I don't know if I worded any of that right, but I do. So I'm against people who've already completed their transitioning from not being able to go into the military, and I am open to being wrong or right about that if people want to have a conversation. But I do think having a conversation about people who are in their transition, whether it's the beginning or the middle, who are still dealing with gender dysphoria, I think that is worth a conversation, because I had 3 brothers in the military. One is out now, and I have 2 brothers who are still in the military. One of my brothers, the brother who is out, is part of the LGBTQ community, which he actually told me there's tons of LGBTQ in the military, and like a lot of them just don't say anything, like tons, like way more than you would ever imagine. Like he's like, it's like gay fest. It's just like people just don't talk about it. Anyway, but I do have brothers in the military, and I would want my brothers to be protected. And if someone's on their team and in their unit that's dealing with something, whether they're transgender or anybody else, I would think that they wouldn't be allowed to at least fight. There has been arguments whether they should they be allowed to be in other positions in the military. And again, I think that is a conversation that should be had. Maybe if someone who's transitioning, who haven't completed their transition, can still be allowed into the military, but just be put on desk duty or nursing, or not, I don't know, nursing, or just something else like mechanics, something else, engineer, IT, something else that they can do besides combat. And I think because Trump just tweeted it, and it hasn't been a lot of further conversations that I know of since then, people are really confused on what the ban actually consists of. So I don't know. So I guess we can't really all give our opinions until all that information comes out, if or when that ever happens. But I think that we should, if it is just people who are transitioning or still dealing with their gender dysphoria, I think it is a conversation that is worthy to be had, instead of just being sort of pushed aside, ignored, or silenced because it doesn't, it doesn't feel good. It's not like a warm hug. Oh, also one more thing. I know that transgender, that term, is expanding to non-binary or genderqueer, or people who just do not want to submit to gender roles or gender stereotypical roles. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about actual people who deal with gender dysphoria. If you want to have another argument whether those people should be labeled transgender or not, that is another video. And again, I'm not transgender. I could have used a lot of terminology wrong, a lot of vernacular. I could have said things wrong, so I am open to being corrected. So that is it. Again, like this video if you want to like it, don't like it, or whatever. Subscribe if you want to subscribe, if you want to continue to have these type of conversations that is not just like, I hate you, you're an asshole, you're this, you're that. Like, if you really want to have like a conversation, please subscribe and hit the notification bell at the side or below if you want to get the notifications when I do upload. Comment. I want to have a conversation. I am interested in what other people think about this. If more people have more information about what the ban actually consists of, please comment below. Let's have a conversation. And that's it. Until next time. Thank you, and thank you. Good night. It's not night, by the way, but good night.